Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Rabbi Speaks. My name is Rabbi Abba Perelmuter. I'm the spiritual leader of a congregation called Shul by the Shore, which meets at the Seaport Marina Hotel on 2nd and PCH. So if you're not doing anything at 10 o'clock on Saturday mornings, come on down and enjoy a little bit of Bible study, Torah study that we do. We have a fun time, and we throw around some ideas, we argue, we cajole, we push each other, and maybe we get to learn a little bit or a verse or two. Now, one of the things that I love about being a rabbi is teaching. I love to teach adults, that is. I've never really been a good teacher for kids. Teaching kids is such a different kind of discipline. I mean, you have so much patience and you have to be able to get the best out of the children. That's not for me. But teaching adults, I just love it. I've been doing it for over 20 years now. And it never gets old for me. I just love talking and teaching people and seeing their reaction when they learn something new or no idea or something like that. Recently, I had the opportunity of doing a class at the Jewish Community Center here in Long Beach. And during my talk, I was just talking about the history of Judaism as it pertained to the destruction of the temple in the year 70 AD. And I had mentioned off the cuff that was just about 100 years prior to the beginning of the Talmudic period, where the Talmud was being written first in Israel and then eventually it was going to be completed in Babylon. And there's a person at the end of the table which I noticed had a very baffled look on their face. And when I said to them, what the baffled look? Why that expression? And she said to me, well, Rabbi, what is the Talmud? You keep mentioning the Talmud. And I realized a very important lesson, that there are things that are so common to me that I know off the cuff that are just natural. I spent 8 years in rabbinical seminary studying primarily the works of the Talmud, because we Jews are often known as the people of the book. The book refers to the Bible, but it's really much more than just the Bible. It really includes the Bible and the Talmud and the Kabbalah and the Zohar and philosophy and the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law. It's an entire library of books that are included in what we call the Torah. Most people are pretty familiar with the 5 books of Moses, the Pentateuch. They're even familiar with the prophets and the scriptures. But there's a whole body of work outside of that. Now, to me, I've been studying the Bible since I've been 10 years old. I went to religious school and I never looked back. But when I mentioned the word Talmud to this person, the person gave me an astonished look, had no idea what I was talking about. So I began to tell them that if you study the Bible, many people have, you will know that there are 613 commandments in the Bible, a variety of different subjects, from social laws such as thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, to cultural laws that are specifically and uniquely given to the Jewish people, such as putting on phylacteries in the morning when we pray, keeping the Sabbath, or eating matzah on Passover, sitting in a sukkah, and a tabernacle booth 8 days, fasting on Yom Kippur. These are culturally unique laws towards Jews and for Jews. And then there are some laws that are just given for God because He just wanted to. He wanted to test us. That is, for example, the laws of kosher, prohibition against eating pork, pig, shellfish, lobster, and only eating meat that was made in a very kosher way, slaughtering an animal in a specific way, making sure the meat is kosher, not drinking blood. Why did He do that? Because He wanted to test us to see if we're loyal or not. And if we're loyal, we accept them. Now, if you read the Bible, you will notice that the Bible is written in a very mysterious ways. The laws are given very, very short and to the point, without much explanation. Doesn't tell you how to do them, where to do them, all the details to do them. It just says, you shall do this and this. For example, one of the more important ones, and easier ones I may add to do, is what we call the mezuzah. If you go to a Jewish home, you will see that on the right-hand doorpost, about 3/4 of the way up, there is this little scroll that is attached to the door. It is called a mezuzah. And it's from the Bible, and God tells us a number of times within the Bible that you should write a mezuzah and attach it to the doorpost and on your gates and on your homes. But he doesn't at all explain or clarify exactly what should be in the mezuzah. Is it a piece of wood? Is it a dollar? What does he want us to hang up on our doorpost exactly? Moses, our teacher and the guide and the giver of the Torah to the Jewish people, came down from heaven, called in his brother Aaron into his room and said, Aaron, I want to explain to you the next law that God gave to us. And he gave Aaron the laws of the mezuzah and all of its details, that you shall take a piece of parchment. Parchment is from the hide of an animal. Work it, stretch it, until it becomes almost like a piece of paper. And then you take a quill, a feather of an animal, chicken, and work it until it has a fine point. And then you dip this quill into ink, and on that very special piece of parchment, you shall write the words of the Bible. And he told us exactly which portions of the Bible we need to write on that mezuzah. Then you slowly and carefully roll that scroll up and attach it to the doorpost of your home. Now, it doesn't say anywhere in the entire Torah, in the written tradition, everything I just said to you now, what should be written, how it should be written, on what kind of paper it should be written, what kind of ink it should be written with. None of that. All of that came down as an oral tradition. From Moses to Aaron, from Aaron to Joshua, from Joshua to the other leaders, from the leaders to the prophets, from the prophets to the sages to the rabbis to the people. And every generation carried this oral tradition with them. And they know exactly if there was a question that came up, that we weren't certain, we didn't know, we forgot, it was obliterated, we have no idea. What do? We go to what was called the Sanhedrin, to the body of 71 rabbis that sat in an office on the Temple Mount, and we said to them, Rabbis, we have forgot, what exactly do we do with the mezuzah? Does it go on the right side or the left side? And the Sanhedrin would tell us, on the right side, my friends. And this became known as Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral tradition. And to us Jews, the oral tradition is as divine and important and applicable as the written tradition. You cannot have one without the other. You can't have the Torah without the oral tradition. And the oral tradition became known as the Talmud. 20 volumes comprise the books of the Talmud. And within those 20 volumes, we have every single law explained and that was written in the Bible itself. With all of its explanations, with all of its particulars, with all of its delicacies, everything falls into the book of the Talmud. And when we take the Bible and we take the Talmud, the written tradition from Moses and the oral tradition that was passed down from Moses orally, it was only allowed to be written in the 5th century of the Common Era. 1500 years ago is when the Talmud was compiled. So when we take both of these together, we have the complete Torah. And that, my friends, is a little bit of an understanding of how we developed the rules and regulations within Judaism. Because without the oral tradition, we would be completely lost. We wouldn't know what to do, how to do it, when to do it, or where to do it. Only because God willed it in this way. He wanted to give us a part written and a part oral, because He wanted us to study. He wanted it to make it harder. We should have to use our intellectual faculties in order to achieve the ultimate in who we can become. That's why He put the onus of study upon our shoulders. The Talmud Torah keneged kulam. The study of Torah, it tells us, is equal to the 612 other commandments. If we had a scale and we put 612 commandments on one side and the study of Torah on the other side, the scale would be balanced. That's how important the study of Torah became to the Jewish people. Joshua, in the first chapters of his book, when the Jews enter into the land of Israel, begs the Jewish people, you shall strive and study and be occupied with the study of Torah day and night. Our responsibility is to study 24/7. And you may ask me, Rabbi, how am I supposed to make a living? If I'm studying Torah and all I'm doing is just study, how can I pay my bills? How am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to buy groceries? So Judaism is a practical religion. It says to you, my friend, take it easy. Get a job, go to work, raise a family, pay your bills. But the extra time that you have, any time that you have extra, you need to put it in the book. You need to study, because you need to develop that intellectual capacity in order to subjugate it to the God. Not only with your heart, not only the emotions you need to give over to God, but you need to give over your brain as well. And if you occupy your mind with sacred words of the Torah, then there won't be any place left for anything else. You won't have to worry about all the silliness that surrounds you, and all of the gossip and evil talk that goes on. No, your mind will be full of holy words, sanctified words, special words, thoughts about God, His book, and the mitzvahs, the commandments that find themselves in the book, that you have the responsibility to accomplish and to observe. And therefore, when you're studying, you're not doing anything else. And that, I explained a little bit to this woman, that is a little bit what the Talmud is all about. It's the oral tradition that came down from Moses, passed from one generation to another generation, until it came to the 5th century of the Common Era and was compiled, and that became to us as important and as equal as the Bible itself. And then she said to me, Rabbi, could you teach us a bit of the Talmud? Give us an inkling, a sprinkle, just maybe one little thought. And I thought to myself, wow, you know what, how am I going to encompass the whole Talmud? I mean, it's 2,500 pages long. I mean, how am I going to do that? I'm going to be able in a short period of time talk. So I thought to myself, yeah, I came up with an idea. One of the tractates, one of the books of the Bible is called The Sayings and the Teachings and the Ethics of Our Fathers. Ethics and morals, the way we should live our lives. This is not necessarily a law. See, a law is shellfish, no good. Chicken, good. Bacon, no good. Hamburger, good. So therefore you have, those are very strict laws, black and white. Ethics and morals are already guides to how we should live. Already ideas, suggestions. And I thought of one little chapter in the Ethics of Our Fathers that will just give us a little bit of an inkling of what we're talking about over here. There was a very famous sage by the name of Antigonus. Antigonus, you might figure out from what his name, was a convert. He was a Greek citizen, but fell in love with Judaism, and he converted. He became a Jew. And not only did he become a Jew, but he became a very, very, very famous Jew. A great scholar. The head of the Sanhedrin. The head of the 71 body Supreme Court in Jerusalem. And he sat at the pinnacle, this convert. And it was brilliant. And one day he began to give a class. And he began to say like this: do not be like servants who serve their master for the sake of receiving a reward. Think about that for a moment. He said, do not be like a servant who serves their master for the sake of receiving a reward. That's most of us, right? We go to work, we do our work, we serve our master, and at the end of the week we expect a paycheck. That's what we're there for. We're not there to make friends, we're not there to become buddies, we're there to do a job, and at the end of the week we expect something. All right? That's when you have human relationships. That's when you have relationships between one person and another. When a servant is worshiping his master as one human to another human. But when you're worshiping the Almighty, Antigonus says, do not worship him with the idea of, God, what are you going to do for me? I'm going to fulfill all of your commandments. I'm going to do all 613 commandments from A to Z. But what are you going to do for me? So Antigonus says, my friends, do not be like that. Don't ask for anything in return. This is not a quid pro quo. You do for me and I'll do for you. You scratch my back and I'll scratch your back. But rather, be like servants who serve their master without the intent of receiving a reward. You do it out of pure love of God. That whatever He says, you don't expect anything in return. You do it only because you realize that you are very special, that God chose you from among 6 billion people, and you and only you God cares about. So when you are off and doing your thing, whether it's in a synagogue or place of work or wherever, and you are worshiping God, don't think to yourself, you know what? I'm going to place that mezuzah on the doorpost in order because God is going to repay me. God is going to make me win the lottery. I'm going to be the next California lottery winner. Hoo-hoo! Yes, I'm so excited. That's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm putting up the mezuzah. That's why I'm refraining from eating that lobster. That's why I'm going to put on film. That's why I'm going to keep Sabbath, because God is going to reward me. Antigonus says, no, my friend. That's not the way to live. You need to be a servant that doesn't expect anything in return, and let the fear of heaven be upon you. That's his last parting words. Always remember that whatever you do, God is right there and watching you. So you can't think that, you know what, I'm alone, no one is looking, no one is seeing. No, there's the big eye that sees, and he records everything. And if you have the fear of heaven upon you, if you know that you need to serve God because he is the Lord and you are sublimating to him, then everything goes properly. But if you think that you're going to be a servant that is going to ask with your hand out that you want a reward, that I'm doing this for you, Lord, because I want you to repay me, that doesn't work. Now this was Antigonus' opinion, and he gave a class about this one day. And everything would have been great, but in the back of the room there was a fellow by the name of Baisus. And Baisus was sitting back and listening to everything that Antigonus was saying. And he was taking it in. And he was a brilliant student. And he was thinking and thinking about it. And he said, 1 second, there's something wrong with what my teacher is saying. It doesn't make any sense. For in the Bible, it says that im shamaya tishmo, if you follow all of the rules, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to bless you with rain. I'm going to bless you with your corn. I'm going to bless your wheat. I'm going to bless your oil. I'm going to bless your wine. I'm going to bless you with children. I will bless, 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 bless. And it seems to imply, Baisus said to Antigonus, that within the Bible, there is a quid pro quo. There is something to be said about I will do and you will bless me. So why do you say that there's no reward? Antigonus argued back, but look around the world. Can't you see, practically speaking, there are many people that observe all of the rules of the Bible. Everything, they live their lives in a holy manner. They are the best kind of people, and yet they suffer. They suffer so dramatically and so miserably. So how about them? What do you say about them? You can't say that these are people that are not good people. They're not sinners. They're holy people. So therefore you have to say that you need to be like a servant who worships God without expecting a reward. Well, this debate raged for several days until Baisus, being completely frustrated with his teacher, said to himself, you know what? My teacher is wrong. And not only is he wrong, but the words of all the rabbis are wrong. And he began to challenge the very essence of the oral tradition. And he began to say, you know what? These guys made up a whole mumbo jumbo. They made up a whole religion based upon their attitudes and their opinions. And they want to shut everybody out, but they went away from the original intent of the Bible. And he founded his own movement called the Sadducees. And the Sadducees became what we know as very strict Bible interpreters. They wouldn't accept any ruling that the rabbi said. They wouldn't accept anything that the oral tradition taught. All they cared about was what the Bible said within the book itself. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I had proposed to you, and I set up a great argument why that could never work. You can't go back to the very essence of the Bible without having the oral tradition. But Baisus was not a man that was going to be taken lightly. And he went out and he began to teach his own brand of Judaism. That everything the rabbis say and everything that the rabbis interpret is false. It's not good, it's wrong. What I say, this is the way that you should listen. This is how you should follow along. Look at the words of the Bible. Look at the clear intent of the Bible. And a great debate rose up in this period just prior to the destruction of the Second Temple, just prior to the Common Era. And these two groups, one became known as the Pharisees, one became known as the Sadducees. And they battled over the main part, and the main argument was the validity of the oral tradition. That tradition, that communication, which Moses gave in the tent and the Sinai desert to Aaron and to his sons and to the elders, that oral tradition was being challenged by the Sadducees themselves. And a split happened within the Jewish people. It was a sad break. It was terrible, because you had people that worshipped at one synagogue that wouldn't come to the other synagogue, and so on and so forth. And a tremendous, terrible thing happened. But eventually, the Sadducees melted away. Do you know why the Sadducees melted away? Because exactly as I said before, you cannot have the Bible without the oral tradition. Antigonus was right. He was absolutely 100% right that we need to be servants, not to look at the quid pro quo, not to look at all of the blessings. Sure, I love the blessings. I want all the blessings to be rained down upon me. I want all the blessings to be rained down upon you. I want this world only to be full of goodness, and kindness shall follow us all the days of our lives. Of course, which fool doesn't want to be blessed? Everybody wants to be blessed, but you can't expect it to be a quid pro quo. You can't expect to look into the Bible and to say, Kabed Avicha, one of the 10 commandments, honor your father and your mother in order that God shall lengthen your days. Now what about someone who honors their father and their mother and dies at 20? God forbid. What do we say? That God was lying? God cheated him? God is false? No. Not so, because there's an oral tradition that tells us there's no quid pro quo. We don't understand God's ways. Someone could honor their father and their mother. Someone could follow. There's a rule here in the Bible that says that if you send away the mother bird and take the chicks, send away the mother bird and take the eggs, then God is going to lengthen your life. What if you do that and you die at 25? What does that mean? That God doesn't exist? That the words of the Bible are false? God forbid. Absolutely not. They're as valid as and true as and eternal as ever. But we need to know Antigonus. We need to listen to the words of the oral tradition, that there is no quid pro quo, that there isn't, I will do this and you will do this for me. Maybe this person gets his reward in the world to come. He goes to paradise and he sits at the right hand of the Lord. Who knows? I don't know. But all I know is that they gave to us such a special study, such a special book, that we need to spend our days and lives just delving into the study of the Talmud. And that's what makes Judaism whole. When we take the written tradition and we take the oral tradition and the words of our rabbis and we take them seriously, as Hillel, one of the greatest of all rabbis, probably he lived around the time of the Common Era as it was coming in. Hillel, the one man that stood up to Herod the Great. Herod was a maniac and killed the entire Sanhedrin. He wiped out all 71 rabbis. The one he wouldn't wipe out was Hillel, because Hillel was such a great man and such a great spiritual force that even Herod was afraid of him. And Hillel wrote, and he said, and listen to these words, because they're so unbelievable, so wonderful and so great, the oral tradition. And Hillel says, be of the disciples of Aaron. Do you know who Aaron was, ladies and gentlemen? Moses' brother. Why be the disciples of Aaron? Because Aaron was known as a lover of peace, a peace lover. See, he had the easy job. Moses had the tough job. Moses was the lawgiver. He was the judge. He put down the law and he had to enforce the law. He was what we call the heavy. Aaron, he was the lover. He was the peacemaker. If he heard that there was a husband and a wife that wouldn't get along, he sought out the husband, he sought out the wife, and he would encourage them to get together. If there were friends and neighbors that wouldn't get along, he went out of his way and he said, hey, Mr. A, Mr. B wants to make peace with you. And then he would go to Mr. B and he would say, Mr. A wants to make peace with you. And together, he would bring the community together. And Hillel encourages us, be of the students of Aaron. Love peace, and not only love peace, but pursue peace. See, there are people that like to sit in their home. They won't get involved in any politics. They don't want to get involved in any struggle, any disagreements. They're out of it. Okay, they love peace. But more than loving peace, we need to pursue peace. If we see injustices going on, we need to do something about it. Don't sit at home and twiddle your thumbs. Don't just lean back in your chair looking up at some screen and thinking to yourself, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to live my life. No, my friends. Pursue peace. Get out of your comfort zone. Make the move. Make sure that in your community, in your family, in your circle, in your neighborhood, there's only peace. Love your fellow creatures. Love them. Think of everybody else as a human being. Think of everybody as someone as special as you are. Don't look at yourself as something great and everybody else below you. Love them. They're God's children. Every one of us is God's children. And bring them closer to the Torah. Don't bring the Torah, don't water it down to bring it down to the people, but bring the people closer to the words of the Torah. How are we able to do that? When we ourselves live holy lives. When we ourselves live the lives that we've been encouraged to do by our rabbis. When we live lives that we say to ourselves, this is the way Moses would have wanted us to live. That God wants us to live. Aaron would be proud of us. Hillel would be proud of us. When we walk around this world and we know that we have done good, that we have tried our best to live a holy life by studying and by understanding our unique role within society, and we're good with ourselves. We're safe with ourselves. We feel good about ourselves. We know ourselves. We look in the mirror and we know that we are doing the right thing. Then, ladies and gentlemen, you are able to go to the next step, to love peace and to pursue peace. That when you are in peace, when your heart is full and fulfilled with the words of the Torah, both the written tradition and the oral tradition, and you are living your life the way God wants you to live your life, then you go out and you are a messenger of Hillel and Aaron and Moses. And then God will not remain a creditor, but He will give you your due. If you have time on a Saturday morning, you're just lounging around looking for something to do, come down to the Seaport Marina Hotel at 6400 Pacific Coast Highway. Saturday mornings we have a lot of fun. We discuss all of these things. We look forward to seeing you there. And until next time, I'm Rabbi Abba Perelmuter, and may God bless you, and may goodness and kindness always pursue you for the rest of your days. Thank you. See you next time.
Hashem, בחצוי סלתנו יפריחו